this is a public forum and we're going to be discussing public issues and, anyway, we have several meetings from the past on our website. If anybody wants to kind of see some of the topics we've discussed, which we tend to talk about similar topics every month, but it kind of evolves over time, certain ongoing topics that we're working on. I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well, because like I said, we have so much to get to today that I had to write it down to keep track of everything. And I don't know, can you all see the screen here?
Yes.
Let's see, I'm gonna stretch something out here. So this is a web page I made today, February 17th meeting agenda and info. This is our agenda. And then down below, I put a bunch of information. So actually, number one is what Michael Fox suggested, is the idea of getting pizza takeout. And I had the idea that we could call some restaurants and ask them for a Kerns meeting discount. And if you tell them, I'd like to order for the Kerns meeting, can I get the discount? And if we have participating restaurants that would do that, then it would be kind of a nice reciprocal relationship. I mean, I'm sure some of us know like the owners of certain restaurants. And so maybe we can kind of, whenever you interact with a restaurant or a manager at a restaurant, you might want to just say, hey, I'm with the Kerns Neighborhood Association. Would you be interested in doing a kind of a monthly meeting discount? And then it would encourage us to order from you during the meeting. As just one small gesture, reciprocal gesture between us and them. And moving forward, I do think we should also consider really helping to get some sort of a business or restaurant association going. So anyway, that's the first thing on the agenda that I wanted to talk about, to kind of during the time when we used to eat pizza during our meetings. But without further ado, maybe we can move right into our second item on the agenda, which has to do with Southeast Uplift and Machu Williams, who's here with us tonight. And Machu is our new representative, or I don't know, liaison to Southeast Uplift. And so I wanted Machu to come and introduce himself to us and us to him, and talk about Southeast Uplift and the relationship between that and Kerns. So Machu, would you like to kind of take this part of it?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Really appreciate the invitation to the meeting. I've always meant to make it out to a Kerns neighborhood meeting in person. Just logistics haven't ever quite worked out. So it is fantastic to see you all in person. Or to speak. But Southeast Uplift is one of 7 district coalition offices in the city of Portland. Most of these, 5 of them, last my count, are nonprofits that fulfill city contracts to provide services to the neighborhoods throughout Portland, Kerns being one of them. This could include just helpful reminders about like filling out your Secretary of State and Department of Justice things you're required to fill out as the state domestic non-corporation. And it's other things about connecting you to community partners, presenting with grant opportunities and other ways to engage with the community. So in my role at Southeast Uplift, I am the neighborhood liaison to 7 different neighborhoods, Kerns being one of them. Sunnyside is another one. So it's very fortunate to have that close connection. So seeing the shared energy around like the community safety committee is a great example. And just facilitating those connections and providing like connection to other city resources and community groups. So my role specifically though is the community liaison program manager. So there's like 3 main components of this. The first is the neighborhood liaison program. So I help coordinate the rest of the staff by sending those reminders to talk to their neighborhoods. And the other is the fiscal sponsorship program. This is a really cool program of Southeast Uplift, where we can take our nonprofit status and extend it to community groups doing work that aligns with our mission. Kerns Neighborhood, it will be a great example of that. Basically anything that helps improve the livability, community engagement, and just functioning of the diverse population of Southeast Portland is that primary mission in general. And finally, I also oversee the Community and Civic Engagement Small Grants Program. This is open right now. So if you have some ideas about community engagement and maybe what that means during like remote participation with COVID, this is Dave has the link right there in the agenda. I would encourage you as an NA to apply if you have some ideas about how to engage with the community. This could be like a distinct phase of a project, but it's something that generally occurs in early April and concludes by December. One example might be maybe you're trying to raise awareness of the neighborhood. How might you do that? This could be a community outreach, like phase one of a bigger project. So this could be like not an entire project, but a distinct phase in a larger project. So don't be discouraged if the grant amount, which is up to $4,000, isn't enough to realize your project. This could be just one part of a much larger project. And finally, I really want to point out the communications grant. This is open too. It is $1,000 in addition to your communications fund that you can apply for. So these are some unique opportunities. They're competitive processes. It's open to the diverse and varied populations of Southeast Portland. So not everyone could get funded, but this is how some of the best community ideas happen, right? From the grassroots, from the local community, who knows the needs best. So these are two programs, which Dave is showing on the screen right now, with small grants, communication grants to keep aware of. And finally, I wanted to just share, and I haven't been following the Kerns communications the past week, but if you see down power lines, PGE, there's a good number to call, 503-464-7777. Just, it helps, they have over 230,000 people that lost power. So the more people that call those lines in, the faster your neighbors get their power back. And just a good thing to look out for each other that way. By that same thing, by that same measure, I want to also point out that if you call 503-823-TREE for any down tree that's in the street, sidewalk, or on a park property, the crews will come out to help remove that. So these are some things that you, just as any average citizen, can do to help improve the safety and livability of their neighborhood. And just encouraging your neighbors to call those numbers too. And I really like Dave's suggestion of having a shared meal around these neighborhood meetings. One way to support the local businesses, but two, also to have a shared experience remotely. That's a great idea. We'd love to see more of that. So I have about maybe 10 more minutes. If you had some questions about small grants or other things that maybe Southeast Uplift does, we could talk about that for a bit. Some of the other things that Southeast Uplift does, we have like over 15 different community partners that we fiscally sponsor, so that we do a lot of work outside neighborhood associations. So one of the cool things about that is like we work with the local partner in Kerns, Educate Ya. They do Spanish translation and are a great community partner in terms of providing that service. They'll do interpretation for meetings for a reasonable price. Something to think about when you're thinking about how to engage your neighborhood more fully and reaching populations that may not be present at the meetings regularly. These are services we could connect you with.
This funds for the party comes from the park party.
Could you?
You mean the picnic, the neighborhood?
Yeah,
picnic?
yeah.
That's Kerns. That's a Kerns event.
That might not be Southeast Uplift.
Oh, okay.
Matu, maybe I pulled up this communications fund page. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit. I know that it's kind of changed from previous years. Do you have, could you share with us what you know about this?
Yeah.
How this works?
So historically, the district coalitions have had a set amount of money that they can use for communication purposes with their community partners. And for Southeast Uplift, that's been about $20,000. And so with 20 neighborhood associations, that's been typically divided based on population. And so like some neighborhoods have larger populations, like Kerns, for example, as well as like even like Eastmoreland, compared to, let's say, Reed College or Reed Neighborhood Association have gotten more funds. And each year, not all the neighborhoods have used that fund. So unfortunately, that money just goes right back to the city, who's more than happy to take it back. But they also want to see it being used. And so we've been trying to encourage some more funds to get out into the community and encourage creativity, innovation. And so the communication grant has been kind of part of that process. This particular year, we are giving every neighborhood association $500, almost no ask. However, you do need to submit a proposal. So if you haven't allocated time for this meeting or already approved a proposal, I would encourage you to spend just a few minutes tonight to authorize that budget approval so you can get it in by this March 7th deadline. But if I know $500 doesn't go very far, but there's other opportunities too. Like I mentioned, the community small grant and the communication grants. So if you have some ideas about how to engage your community more fully, please apply to both those grants in addition to the communication funds. Not everything can be funded, but it doesn't hurt to try and aim for the stars.
Matthew, Jenna here. I have a question for you.
Yes.
As a part of your role as community liaison, do you work with neighborhood groups and neighborhood associations to help them identify what activities they might like to utilize these types of funds for, or are you more so just notifying neighborhood associations that funds are available should they have a project in mind?
Yeah, so in terms of the communication funds, we do provide some guidance on like a baseline of expectation. Typically, this is like one large community event that's well advertised. I know historically Kerns has done the picnic in the park. There's also another example, the Kerns United, the mural on Everett. That's the neighborhood local, more or less, painted in the intersection. That's something that we have extended our fiscal sponsorship or nonprofit status so people can donate tax exempt to support that project to increase civic engagement. So we provide like some examples of how these funds might be used, but we do also not want to restrict it so much that when people have great ideas that they feel compelled by like what we are suggesting, and offer that flexibility in how they do spend the funds. Just believing in grassroots democracy and public participation. So,
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Josie Booth. I had been applying for the communications fund for Kerns for the last couple of years, and it's been up to $1,000. That's not the case?
No, not this year. So part of this is the amount that Civic Life, the city bureau that funds programs, has cuts. So we've had to reallocate the budget, but also we want to increase the amount available to other groups who may not necessarily be directly involved with the neighborhood association. Like, one example off the top of my head is Apano, the Asian Pacific Association Network.
But the communications grants fund is $20,000. Is that correct?
Communication grants fund is $23,000. The communications fund dedicated to neighborhood associations exclusively is another $10,000 separate from that. So combined, the two.
But any one neighborhood association can only get $500. Is that it?
Yeah, that's where the program is in this year. And we're looking at opportunities to perhaps increase that next year, but that's where the budget is this year.
Well, because for the newsletter, I've been applying for that every year, last couple of years, and $500 isn't going to cut it. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, in that case, I would definitely encourage you to apply for the communication grants. Just definitely check what the preferences are and see if you can't speak to those.
Well, yeah, the communication grant guidelines are a little bit more stringent, and they're not just for neighborhood associations. And, I've tried to write stuff about diversity, but, the Kerns neighborhood has just a certain demographics. We don't have anything more than that. So, I don't know how I can speak to that if we don't have it here.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always like a part of every neighborhood that maybe isn't being engaged with. So there's opportunities even, I mean, like Kerns is great, the whole city passes through Kerns on their way to the city core. So I think there's a lot
Right.
of opportunity for the greater community here in Kerns. Could you?
But I was wanting to do like the postcard, the community grant fund, to get more outreach to the community. But and I tried that last year, but for some reason wasn't chosen. And we can't produce it without printing it. So, and that's over $1,000 right there.
Yeah, I mean, some of like these outreach efforts, are going to be far beyond what $500 can provide. Most neighborhoods have a general fund, and I would encourage you to tap into that and see, getting that authorization from the board to use those funds for that reason. And, if you're successful, I'm pretty sure that will return itself in the future.
So yeah, we're not likely to get those grants. In other words, those communication grants, it sounds like.
It depends like how directly the proposal might speak to those points. So, I mean, like I said, there's a great opportunity in Kerns. So I would hope to that you apply for it. But could you perhaps maybe email me and Paola, our communications manager, so we can help develop that proposal to make it more likely to be funded by the review committee?
Yeah, actually I did email Leah and also Paola today.
Oh, great.
Because I want to get those slides too, the slides from the presentation, because they're more detailed.
Absolutely. If you could drop your email in the chat, I'd be happy to just email them to you right now.
Well, let's see. How do you do that? I don't drop my email in the chat, so.
So you go down to the bottom of the screen where all our faces are, and about the bottom left, there should be a chat thing that pops up when you bring your mouse over it. Just go ahead, click that,
Yep.
and type there.
And I'm more than happy
I'm looking at.
Manchu, I'm more than happy to connect you and Josie also.
Oh,
We
fantastic.
can follow
Well,
up tomorrow.
I can do it. I would. It's it's Josie Booth at Fast Surf US .US JOSIE BOOTH Booth, like telephone booth, at Fast FAST Surf, like surfboard, and .US, like United States.
Great, got it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Quick question, Manchu.
Yes.
Do we have any existing funds in Southeast Sewell that are unused at the moment?
I'm glad you asked that because you do. The Kerns neighborhood has, I think, over about $1,300 for that mural and other street intersection art. I realize that these activities might be difficult during COVID, but just keep that in mind as we hopefully emerge from this pandemic, or you find a way to stagger how people do these murals, that there is like over $1,000 available for Kerns in that pot of money. That's been donated exclusively for that purpose by past neighbors.
Mural typically cost?
Oh, I mean, it can be like very, DIY and cheap, but typically I would say like most of these murals are several $100. I mean, a few $100s to maybe about $1,000, depending on the amount of people engaged, how you compensate the artists, and the materials used.
So Machu, Jenna here again. I'm just curious as to the murals. They're beautiful. They're a fun way to get neighborhood residents out there working on a project together. And I'm just wondering, does Southeast Uplift see neighborhood murals being an entryway to more civic engagement? Is that the civic engagement that is what the organization looks for, promotes? I'm thinking about funds available for a mural versus funds available to print a postcard that might introduce residents to another type of opportunity? Just out of curiosity here.
Yeah, so I mean, postcards are like no questions asked, like an approved expense for like communications. Murals are usually more like a small project. So we're kind of talking about more restricted pots of money depending on the grant agreement. But for example, like the Kerns United mural is a donation made to Southeast Uplift for the Kerns neighborhood for the specific purpose. Like those funds can't be used for postcards or other things. It has to be for that community event that paints a mural, which Dave has just pulled up on the blog there, showing this in the neighborhood. It's just one possibility how you engage with your neighbors and relate and connect. You know, we don't want to necessarily like say like what is the ideal way of doing this, other than just to keep aware of the diversity of the neighborhood, how you increase who's welcome and who participates, and just include that as increasing accessibility so you have greater inclusion. So the mural isn't like a silver bullet or a solution, but it is a great entryway and kind of a neutral way to engage the community and have a visual impact on the environment they live in.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
So it's 6:30, Dave. I
Yeah,
know you have a full agenda tonight.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Machu, for joining us and introducing yourself. Welcome as our liaison. And I will certainly make sure that you and Josie get connected by email. And also, you are, you know, Machu can be reached by the Southeast Uplift website. Let's see, staff. If you go to their website and go to the staff, here is the team, and here is Machu. So here's the other staff. So yeah, so thanks for joining us, and we look forward to future working with you.
Could I ask one quick question, Machu?
Yes, please, Jim.
What does Southeast Uplift have currently that is for active committees, and what is Kerns' current participation in it?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. That is another part that, you know, all the district coalitions, particularly Southeast Uplift, engage in, is that the committees. We have a monthly land use transportation committee. This is great for learning about citywide transportation and land use proposals, such as like the residential infill project the last year. We also have a houseless action committee, which I know the Sunnyside Community Safety and Livability Committee that Kerns is a part of is very active in. And in addition to that, there's also a bylaws committee looking at how to make a more equitable, inclusive reform of the bylaws to be so the coalition could better serve in the 21st century going forward. And some other things to highlight is the board development committee. And finally, there is also the finance committee, which gives recommendations on how Southeast Uplift allocates the funds available to it. But these are all open to the public. The land use and transportation and the houseless action committee are more about our collective well-being. And so that might be a more engaging opportunity for people. So, great question.
Yeah, I just want to say Jesse on our board who's here tonight is participates in the land use committee. I participate in the houselessness action committee, and I'm on the general board of Southeast Uplift as a Kerns representative.
And the executive committee is kind of the leadership of the Southeast Uplift board of directors. They are meeting at this very minute, which is kind of been part of the difficulty in making it to your meeting.
Well, it's unfortunate that they always meet at the exact same time we meet, which is I've never been able to go to that meeting, and I've actually requested that there might be a way to change that, but maybe we have to change our time. Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you. We do have to keep moving, but thank you, Machu, and we'll be in touch. And we appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, we have a very full meeting tonight. A lot of great speakers and guests and topics. It's a little bit later than 6:30, but we have Heidi and Jan as our guests from the neighborhood emergency team. And Heidi and Jan, if you don't mind introducing yourselves and sharing about your organization. Thank you.
Great. I'm Heidi McNamee. I am team leader for the Kerns Neighborhood Emergency Team, which is a program run by the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management here. And volunteers participate in several hours of training, and then we are available to serve our communities. So over the last weather event and in the few weeks beforehand, different team members from Kerns, but also from all across the city, have participated in staffing, for example, COVID testing clinics. Kerns members dug out seniors. We cleared out storm drains. We protected people from running into downed power lines. We have staffed shelters for our houseless neighbors because of inclement weather. So there's just a plethora of things that a neighborhood emergency team member can do. Your Kerns team, we are small, but we are trying to grow. So I will share information on how to get onto our mailing list. And in fact, maybe Dave, could I share my screen? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted, Zoom. I have to maybe click a button or go ahead and try if it'll let you.
Okay, no, I've been disabled. Tell you what, in the chat, I will put a couple of links. And so if you would like to sign up for the Kerns
I'm going to
neighborhood.
stop sharing and I'm going to let you share. Okay, now you can share. So
I will share. So I'm going to share this. Let's move this. So if you click on the link that I'm going to share in our email, then you will pop up on this little website and you can sign up for our team emailing list. So you will know about our meetings and you'll get all the information about what we're up to. Also on this link are some very basic things about your own personal readiness and readiness of any work group or community organization that you might be interested in. So I've got a link for signing up for public alerts, links for helping you put together emergency kits and creating disaster plans and all kinds of good stuff. So if you just want to dabble, but maybe you don't want to commit to the training, this is a good place to start to see what we're all about. Right now, our monthly meetings are open to everybody. They always are, but we are on Zoom. So our next meeting is tomorrow night at 7. You are, of course, welcome to join us if you wish. I'm now going to pass it over to Jan, who is a Sunnyside net. Go ahead.
Heidi, can I ask you a question before we go?
Yeah, you bet.
So is your link, is it in our newsletter?
There is a link on your page, like your website.
Yeah, I'm going to share screen here. There actually is a, I've participated in some of the NET meetings and Heidi and I have worked together a little bit. And there actually, if you go to our website, under About Kerns, there's actually a page called the Kerns Net Team. And you go to that page and it has Kerns Net meeting topics, Portland prepares Kerns Net page. This is kind of one of the homes for the Net page. Now, Heidi, you were sharing the MailChimp newsletter that you have.
Right.
And I actually, if you link to today's meeting agenda, that page that Heidi was sharing with us, it's right here. If you say sign up for the Kerns Net mailing list, you can easily get to that from our website. And then this is that page. It's kind of hard. It's a hard link, but to like share. But If you find the link to it, then you can sign up for it and then get on to that mailing list.
Dave, I just put the link into the chat. So if people click on the little chat
Great.
symbol and then they click on that link, it'll take them right there.
Wonderful. I will also add it to the Kerns Net page on our website, which, you know, as another resource. And Heidi, actually, you're welcome to update this page if you'd like.
It is stale. I need to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it has some good resources. It links, you know, there's actually a city site. See if it's gonna, oh, for some reason that didn't work. But the city has a net page, which in theory, well, let's see if this works.
I will put that in the chat.
Yeah. Anyway, there are a lot of resources. The problem with the world today is there's so much information coming at people, but for the most part, you can get to things from the Kerns website if you click around, but we'll try to keep adding resources. I'm so glad you guys are here tonight, Heidi and Jan, because I really would like to see your group and our group merge more. We're both kind of the same boundary, the same neighborhood, a lot of overlapping interests. For the most part, in general, we need to grow these groups because there's so much information to get out. So thanks for your question, Rebecca, but we'll keep working on that. I want to hear what Jan has to say.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for letting me come to your meeting. As Heidi said, I live at Southeast 40th and Taylor. I'm very deep in the Sunnyside neighborhood, and I have been working with the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association for a number of years around emergency preparedness. And we also have a link, I think Dave was sharing it, to some of the resources that we are available for our community to look at in terms of preparedness. So let's see what Dave is also showing you here. A couple, I also write an article or 2 or 12 for my neighborhood association newsletter. And I've been doing it for a number of years, and I look back recently and realized I've been saying the same thing for a number of years. So I guess the message is consistent. And it's about building, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's about building community through emergency preparedness. So what Dave was saying about linking, the neighborhood associations are about building community. So one way of looking at it is by supporting people for emergency preparedness. Okay. Which, yeah, and we have extensive resources here on emergency preparedness. I wanted here, I know we don't have very much time. It's not a test. I'm a former middle school teacher. So if I put on my teacher hat or to my teacher voice, I would just like to humbly ask you, where are some of you with emergency preparedness? Where are you personally? And I'm not going to be looking at the chat. Heidi, I don't even know if you want to monitor that, but I just would like to have a conversation for a few minutes, just the way Dave opened the meeting. Where are you in terms of your own preparedness? I could say that Heidi and I prepared, but you don't really want to hear from us right now. And also Heidi and I have been working together organically for a couple of years. So this is a natural next step. Where are you? Dave, I'll get you started and then other people jump in. You're mute. Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Dang that Zoom mute. Well, I'm really not as prepared as I should be. I did attend a few net meetings with Heidi and the crew, and I kind of observed the way things worked. And, you know, we do have a bunch of flashlights. We do have some crank radios that you crank to listen to the radio. I've been starting to look into solar panels to generate some electricity when the power goes out, but it's still a work in progress. I know you're supposed to have a lot of water ready. You know, maybe I can ask you this, and this might be a silly question, but where is the safest place to store supplies? Because if there is an earthquake, we have a basement, we have a garage that's not very stable. I mean, if there's an earthquake, are we going to be able to access our basement, or should we keep it in a box in our backyard? So maybe I'll put it like that. I'm not quite sure where to store supplies.
Heidi, you want to talk about that for a minute?
I think that depends on what you think is most likely to be available to you, Dave. So redundancy is also good. My 1904 house might make it through a big earthquake, but it might not. So my personal supplies are in my garage, because even if the garage doesn't make it, it's easier to paw through it.
Okay.
So that's where I
advice.
chose to put my things.
Very interesting.
We have members on our team though who live in small apartments, and they've just dedicated a cupboard or a drawer, and that's where they put theirs.
And of course, if there's like a power outage, you want a place where you can get your flashlights, other supplies, maybe hand warmers, or in a drawer that's not due to an earthquake. Maybe this might be a good question to ask, a good time to ask this question. Is there any talk of neighborhoods having like containers of, you know, large steel containers somewhere in the neighborhood that have emergency supplies? Is that a thing?
So you're talking about something that in net speak we would call a cache.
Okay.
And I will talk about caches later, because that's kind of a stretch goal for Kerns. Some neighborhoods have them, we do not.
I mean, I imagine if you have it, if there's an emergency, everyone would flock to it, and there'd be a lot of competition to get those supplies. So there's probably a lot of logistics to work out around that.
So can we jump back to personal preparedness, just so that we can touch base with lots of folks?
I'd like to hear from other people.
Rebecca.
I'll speak. This is Rebecca, and I kind of put this out there about a year ago on Nextdoor and asked people where they housed their emergency supplies, and the best information I got from my house, which is just 1905, and I don't think the basement's going to be a good place for it either, as it's in my backyard in a like a Rubbermaid thing. And I was just thinking yesterday, I was like, you know, I got my emergency stuff out there, but I'm kind of prepared for an earthquake that happens during the summertime. And I'd survive and you know, this really cold, wet weather and stuff if it were to happen then. So I have to rethink my cash.
We've got a few more minutes. Anybody else?
Martha and Jim here. I think we are pretty well prepared. We have a lot of water. I bottle my own water, and then twice a year I change it out and change it over, dump the old water into the garden, fill the jug again. We have the 2-bucket toilet system, which we have not had to use, fortunately. And I also have food and stuff stashed in 3 separate places. So thinking about the questions about, do you put it in the basement? House collapses, do you put it in the garage? Well, we've got stuff squirreled away in several places. We also have, this was something a friend told me, each one of my caches has some cash money, small bills, because if the electric grid goes out, credit cards and cash registers don't work. Got a lot of small bills. I don't want to pay somebody a 20 for a 50-cent item. Give them $1 for the 50-cent item. So I won't tell you where my stashes are, but my stashes have cash in the stash.
That's cash, C-A-S-H.
C-A-S-H, not C-A-C-H-E.
Do we have time for one more person, Dave? Anybody else? Okay, it looks like our time's up, Heidi, huh?
Are there
Well-
any quick questions that folks have about neighborhood emergency team in general or the Kerns Net specifically?
This is Josie Booth. I might have missed, where is the place you're supposed to meet in case of the earthquake for the neighborhood?
Well, our gathering spot is actually at 26th and Cooch. So the big field behind the school at Da Vinci.
Oh, okay, Da Vinci School, okay.
Mhm. And so that's where we will gather. However, Kerns neighborhood, as you all know, is huge. And the Kerns neighborhood emergency team is very small. So the idea behind NET is, yes, we as NET team members want to serve our community, but with only a small handful of folks who will meet at that school, we will not be able to do a huge response. So the best bang for our buck right now with our small numbers is to reach out to people before an event, or maybe right after an ice storm, or right after a fire that impinges upon everyone's ability to live their life normally. So while it's all fresh in your head, what happened during the ice storm and how you were sort of affected by that, now's a great time to be thinking about preparing for the next ice storm or preparing for the next inclement weather, because any emergency that throws you off your stride is something that you could think about in advance.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about the radio system that you guys use?
Well, many people who get into this area enjoy getting deep into radio. And so there are a number of us that are ham radio operators. And some of us also work with Multnomah County Aries doing emergency response. So for example, my husband is a ham radio operator and he leads the Aries Bravo team. So if there was an earthquake, after we were sure that each other were fine and our neighbors are fine and our street is fine, then he would get on his bicycle and ride to the emergency command center out off of 82nd. And I would stay in the neighborhood and do my neighborhood stuff. And then in the event of an event, all of us nets also use little handheld. If you're not a ham, you could still use a family radio. There are a couple of different kinds of radios out there. If anybody wants to talk radio, I'm happy to talk about that later.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
I just want to end by saying, and I know we've kind of gone over our time, is that there are so many more resources available now and information. The state is getting, and the county is getting very, very prepared, a lot of it behind the scenes. So rest assured that their work is in progress, but it's still counting on you for your own level of preparedness to be able to take care of yourself for a couple of weeks until, things can be, services can be brought in. Think about how long it's taking to get the PG&E to get services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Similar scenario. Thank you for letting me come to your meeting tonight.
Thank you for coming, both of you, very much. I really appreciate it. At the last minute, I want to point out that there's this bridge being built over the highway on I-84 called the Blumenauer Bridge. It's under construction right now. I actually recently took a picture. Here's the most recent, about a month ago. It looks like this. It's going to be able to withstand the strongest earthquake, and they're building it to make sure that people can get across I-84 if there's an earthquake, because all the other bridges possibly might collapse. So this is going between Kerns around 9th Avenue, and it's going to cross over I-84 right here. So anybody, I recommend you go down and take a look at this bridge that they're building. Here's what it's going to look like. it's going to be for pedestrians and bicycles only. However, it will hold fire trucks and police cars and emergency vehicles in the case of an emergency. So there's probably, I'm guessing, going to be a lot of hubbub around that when it opens. I'm thinking later this year. Something, I think it's kind of related and exciting. So
It is very related, and it's very cool that they're thinking about this, that most people at least can get from one place to another. So this is a big deal. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we have this on our page about it on our website. I encourage everyone to come to our website, click on a bunch of links. There's a bunch of stuff on it, links to each other, and Heidi has access to build this net page. So I encourage you to build that, Heidi, and take advantage of that.
So Dave, when I get a volunteer who will help me to do that, that will be a beautiful thing.
I mean, you can always email me and I'd be happy to update it. I can even help you build a website for your team if you're interested. But anyway, wonderful. Well, we probably should move on to the next topic. So thank you, Heidi and Jan, very much. Let me go to our agenda. Next topic is houselessness, which is not that far off from emergency preparedness, because, you know, some people have said, and I've thought about it too, if you think about it, if there's an earthquake and everyone's house collapses, the people that are currently houseless are going to be least affected in a certain way. They already are living in tents. They already live day to day in the elements, and everyone will probably be asking them for advice. Like, oh, how do I, go to the bathroom? How do I get water? How do I, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you just do this and this. But anyway, having said that, I personally feel that we currently, I would call it a humanitarian crisis of homelessness, houselessness. The reason I think people now say houselessness instead of homelessness is because the word home could describe where someone lives, no matter where they are. So it's not that they don't have a home, they have a home, but they don't have a house. And that's the reason that the term kind of morphed. There's other terms that people use, which is like people experiencing houselessness. I think it's kind of an evolving term, but I think we all agree that I think we would all agree that it's an issue that needs to be improved. And some of the people in this meeting, I believe Martha wrote an email, and Martha, if you don't mind, I'll skip a little bit ahead here. But Martha, you live, if I'm not mistaken, near the Pepsi building?
Correct. We live on 25th and Pacific, which is on the west side of the former Pepsi facility. And the extreme problem issue is on the west side, kind of behind the Zipper. If probably everybody knows where the Zipper is, and if you go down 27th Street, it's pretty awful. It's sad. It's dangerous for the people that live there. It's not sanitary. It's not healthy. It's not good for them, and it's not good for the rest of us either. So we mainly came to plug in and find out whatever else the neighborhood is doing. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. That's beyond my capability, but we would like to plug into whatever efforts and knowledge base you have.
Well, I just want to say a couple of things. Actually, I don't know if Machu's still here, but Machu and I are both on a couple of houselessness committees. There's a lot going on. I actually, on our website, there's a Solve team, which initially was devoted to cleaning up litter around the neighborhood, but it's now including addressing houselessness issues. So on our website, I've listed a bunch of resources. I think I'm going to go ahead and link to this news article on OPB. This is, I think a lot of us know who Dan Ryan is. He's a new commissioner. He's been put in charge by the mayor to address issues of homelessness in Portland. There is, let's see, they used to have a transcript here, unfortunately. So here's what's happening. The city used to think the solution to homelessness is to build a lot of low-income or affordable housing, like large affordable housing projects all over the city. And they're still working on that. However, the problem is that's not fast enough. And so there's a new way of thinking, which is that there's this intermediate stage, which is sanctioned villages. And what that is basically there's already people living on the streets all over the place, as we all know. The idea is to create sanctioned areas where they have showers, they have garbage facilities, they have bathrooms, they have laundry facilities, they have social workers, they have, so Portland currently has these sanctioned villages: Dignity Village, R2D2, C3PO, St. John's, Kenton Women's, Agape Village. They're starting to proliferate, and Dan Ryan is talking about there's basically three ways people live when they're homeless. They're either in a tent, or they're living in their vehicle, or in some cases, they're starting to be these tiny houses, these tiny house villages. R2D2 is a village, Right to Dream 2, which is one of the earlier ones. But then as a kind of a pun off of that, there's this new thing called C3PO. Two of them are down by OMSI. It's a cluster, and then one of them is the old Greyhound bus station by the train station. That is now a village. If you come here, it stands for Creating Conscious Communities with People Outside, is 3 shelters based on the village model as an emergency response. It's not actually just about COVID, it's just about housing in general. They live in these, they call pods. And this is by OMSI. Actually, if you go there now, you'll see it's actually, it looks more like these pods. Now I do want to say this is still not an immediate, on a very short-term level, what's happening is these porta potties that are being put around town, these red porta potties. And then also, there's the Joint Office of Homeless Services that is sending, they'll send garbage trucks around to pick up garbage. So where, essentially there's a bunch of things. The more neighbors that can engage, like in this meeting tonight, I would propose that we start up a Kerns, well, we have this thing called the Solve team already, and I would propose that everybody here joins the Solve team. It's a combination of picking up litter, but also addressing homelessness. Litter and garbage is one of the biggest issues that happens with homeless camps. So I think the two of them really work together. But I actually contact, the old Comcast building on Sandy Boulevard that's currently vacant. I contacted the owner of that building because it's a large area that I think would be a good place for like a temporary homeless village. The idea would be, the idea that's being proposed is throughout the city, the idea is to set up all these sanctioned villages where instead of people living in squalor, we could set up these villages where they could move that have humanitarian services. And so the thing is, we have to start identifying locations that would work for that purpose. Unfortunately, that area that used to be the Comcast building on Sandy is, I heard back from the architect that it's not available. Do you guys, I'm going to throw out a trivia question. Does anyone know what that's going to become? That old Comcast building? It's going to be a Lexus dealership, which I don't know how many Lexus drivers there are in this neighborhood, but you know.
No, they're gonna have to move from Southwest to go to Lexus, the Lexus dealer.
Yeah, it's the same company that's in Cooney Lexus. So I reached the architect for that, and that's going to be a Lexus dealership. There actually is another area that I've been looking into, which is right by Lloyd Center and Benson High School. It used to be a credit union, right when you cross the bridge there, and that's the next one I'm going to go for. You know, so here's the, I mean, this is a little bit a longer term, but the city is starting to allocate funds for sanctioned areas where, you know, in some cases it's like a giant parking lot where people can park their cars. And Dan Ryan of the city is starting to talk about this. They have funding for this because there was recently a big grant, a ballot measure to fund, you know, housing issues. I'm going to just show you, but what it boils down to is if anybody is aware of any vacant lots that could become a sanctioned housing village, a sanctioned village, then the idea is we could set up amenities there. This is the area I'm talking about here. It used to be a credit union. It was torn down right when you cross the highway to Lloyd Center. And it's currently this big vacant lot. And, you know, Benson High School is actually vacant. They're renovating Benson High School. So that's actually not an issue. Right next to it, you have the Department of Human Services. You have the Multnomah County Child Welfare Office, Oregon Department of Human Services. So I'm now thinking this might be a really good place to create a sanctioned village with humanitarian services.
Dave, on a previous meeting that we had, didn't somebody say that there were already plans for that space? I don't remember his name.
Yeah,
he's a biker.
Jay Harris, the chair, said he heard that. You know, I plan to contact the owner. The problem is there's always pushback. You know, if you reach the owners, they'll be like, yeah, we have plans, but then it will sit there for a year or 2 or 3, with nothing being done to it. I think that there's, the city is starting to allow temporary permits for shelter type situations. But I agree, it's a real challenge. Actually, I'm gonna move down the map. You know, C3PO is down by OMSI, and it's in this industrial area down here. And there's a lot of space there. Where is it? It's like,
It's at the top.
I went too far down. It's like up here. It's like around here, yeah. This is where that is, right here. And there are these giant parking lots, and it's far from houses. So, you know, they have a bunch. If you look at this now, there's like 80 or 90 pods of housing, and there's like a waiting list to get in. So they're extremely.
And then do they have like laundry facilities? I mean, obviously they have porta potties or whatever. Do they have showers and laundry facilities that they're installed there?
They do. They have laundry facilities. They have showers. They have social workers. They have, you know, everything people need to survive in a much more humanitarian environment than they currently have. Now, you know, Martha, I think to your, you know, this is a medium-term solution. you know, the city has like long-term solutions. This is more of a medium-term solution, but on an immediate basis, I think Sunnyside has recently did the huge cleanup where they got some dumpsters, and the neighbors came out and they worked with the local homeless people, and they said, we're about to throw this stuff in the dumpster, take what you don't want to be thrown away. You know, the other thing is that we can work with the city to have them come do regular garbage pickup if that's not happening. Maybe I'll let you talk, Martha. Do you have some requests or suggestions for what to do about the homeless camps near you?
No, that's why I came. However, to diverge a minute, this is a picture I cut out of the Oregonian a week or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is like one of those little pods that's down by OMSI.
Yeah.
And we went by there the other day, and oddly enough, the tent site campers are clustered around the village as well. I guess that's a commentary.
Which I figured that would happen. I mentioned that before. This is Josie.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Yeah.
The portable toilets that I see around are wonderful, and they do get serviced regularly. That is such an important thing. And I think that actually was some federal funding that came out of the first COVID CARES Act. So that's a good thing. You might put on your list, I hate to have myself saying this, but the Pepsi site has a lot of big parking lots in it. And I have talked to the gentleman that's on that development team, and they do intend to redevelop the site, as we all know, but the current economic forecast has that project is not imminent. So in terms of leasing, if the city can lease land for a year or something, maybe that's.
Yeah, you know, we actually know those developers from the Pepsi project because they've presented to our neighborhood association a few times. So yeah, maybe that would be a good way to go, is to meet with them and to see if we can turn that into a sanctioned village where we bring in porta potties and social workers and you know, laundry facilities and clean it up and get it, you know, under management so that it's not just a squalor the way it is. Martha.
Why don't I talk to you?
So that project is on hold?
Well, yes, because of the economic climate. And it all falls back to COVID. I mean, the market for everything is down. I am pretty
I just
confident.
knew they had a budget for it and they were already moving along. I really didn't know.
Well, I don't know either, but I'm observing that they're not on their timeline.
We are in touch with those developers because they've met with us several times. So I'm going to go ahead and reach out to them. Also, since they own the property, I think they have a certain responsibility to keep it managed and under control. But, you know, it's a combination of wanting to be, you know, help the people living there, but also help the neighbors that are nearby. Another local neighbor had sent an email that their house almost was burned down from homeless people setting fires near their house. And he was very upset, you know, understandably. But why don't we keep this conversation going as neighbors? You know, join, you know, I urge everyone to join the Kerns mailing list, but we also, you know, if I can just plug, if you go to our website, if you come over here, we have these different groups. We have the Solve team, which I would like to use as a way to address these kind of action items where we can actually set up cleanup events But also we can work with some, there's all these nonprofit organizations that work with the homeless community. Let's see. So there's this group called Join, Do Good Multnomah. There's a lot of organizations we can work with, and they can come and talk to us and maybe even provide people to reach out to the homeless community and try to assess what their needs are. But Martha, I was going to ask you, you know, as a neighbor, what are some of the negative effects that you're experiencing, or some of what would be some things that would help the situation? Like, is it the garbage? Is it illegal activities? Is it noise? Sanitation?
The garbage and the absolute trash is one of the major issues.
Mm-hmm.
It has spread out. It's no longer just on the sidewalk and in the street. It's halfway across the street.
Okay.
We have a very tiny empire consisting of 3 rental units, and our tenants are very nervous about walking along there. I'm nervous. We would go past that houseless encampment on our way to Fred Meyer, and I don't like walking by there anymore, and our tenants have expressed a lot of reservation. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a fire. It's a fatal fire.
I think that what we need to do is have outreach where we have people go talk to the people that live there and get a dialogue going with them. And this is what has been happening in Sunnyside. There's a committee there that goes and talks to the homeless people, and they assess what's going on. They also do cleanups where they, like I said, they'll work with the business owners. They'll hire dumpsters. They'll go out and literally clean it up. There's also Central City Concern. They actually have garbage trucks that will come pick up garbage. So there's a lot that can be done if we, the neighbors and the residents, work together. But it takes communicating in meetings like this. And I encourage us all to keep communicating. You know, we have to form action groups, basically. We have a Solve connection, you know, Solve, where you go out and pick up litter, but this is bigger than that. This is getting involved with Central City Concern, working with business owners and getting, you know, dumpsters, and more than, I think a lot of it is outreach to the people who live in those camps and talk to them and say, you know, we want to help you get rid of your garbage, but you also have to get it under control. But also the city of Portland has programs that they need to ramp up quickly. So yeah, there's a lot of aspects to it.
After
How
the
about
meeting,
contact some of those organizations and have them outreach with the houseless community?
Well, I think we need to work, we're gonna need to coordinate it between them because the city is inundated with things. So we're gonna have to really, you know, really coordinate it ourselves. And this meeting is a good start. Let's see, 7:18. Yeah, we do need to move on to the next topic, but I forgot to mention that Rob Noss, he's our state representative. He has coined a letter to the city of Portland urging them, I'm not going to get into it too much, it's right here, urging them to really move on this stuff. There's a lot of pressure on the city, and I think we are going to see a lot of movement. But everyone in this group who's interested in keeping this dialogue going, please sign up for these like the Solve team. Email me. I think you all know how to reach us. You can go to the website and just click on this email here, and let's all work together to like add up all of our, you know, our minds and our hearts and our our ideas and our help how we can. So shall we move on to the next topic? It ties in, actually. It's about outreach and neighborhood identity. Outreach is basically, here are some postcards that Josie designed. Josie, do you want to talk about this, or would you like me to? I don't hear you if you're talking. So Josie has been working on this for quite a while, this is a proposed postcard that we want to send out to everybody in the neighborhood. Kerns has over 8,000 people living here, plus businesses. Like, probably if you add all the people that work in Kerns, you'll get over 10,000 people. Many of them don't even know that they're in the Kerns neighborhood. There's just not very much outreach that happens. And even next door has divided Kerns between inner and outer Kerns. So half of the neighborhood is kind of disconnected from the other half. So, and that's something at the end I was going to say, we're actually working to combine the two halves. But the idea is Josie is almost done with this postcard, which I think is great. I think it's clean, it's inviting. Josie, do you want to discuss it?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, I have it pretty much completed. I tried to show my video so you could see me, but it's not working. So at least you can hear me.
Oh, we can see you now.
Okay. Well, anyway, what I wanted to do is make it one color as you see, and I wanted it to be a little more inviting to attract the community at large. So that's what the little illustration is. And, it is clip art. I didn't spend hours and hours doing that because I have other responsibilities too. But that's where I'm at. I think it's a good start to, welcome the neighbors of the community. We have over 8,000 Kerns neighbors. So, and we also have a lot of addresses too. So we definitely have a far reach if we could mail this out, get it printed and everything. I haven't talked to the printer lately because of the situation with the weather. But I know it's over $1,000 to print just one color for the amount we need. I mean, 8,000 postcards. I mean,
we do have money in the bank that we've been sitting on that we could fund that with, in addition to the Southeast Uplift money. So,
I guess I need to get approved tonight that I am going to go ahead and apply for the communication grant and the communication fund for $500 for the newsletter. But I'm still want to try for the postcard and maybe upgrading the MailChimp account. I didn't look at the MailChimp account, to upgrade it, but to send electronic postcards, I think I'd have to be on another level, not the free plan.
Absolutely. What do you think, Jim?
Jenna here. I know that I'm a noob to this neighborhood association meeting. However, I do have 6 years of experience in events and event marketing. And so I think that really does translate to this here. And I think this is a really great start, and I think the graphics are really appealing. I think that the one color in this nice green sagey tone is awesome. There are a few things I would point out, and I'm wondering if this is the best way to provide feedback, or if feedback would be better provided in a different format.
You can provide the format of feedback to me since I'm the designer.
Sure, Josie. Well, and the first thing I'm noticing is that it is all in
personally to me, not in this format. I don't want to
gotcha.
You understand that?
I do. I
Okay.
do.
So that could be at another time.
Sure. Would love to share some things. I see your contact information right up here. Awesome.
Yeah, Jenna, we would welcome your input. And in general, what I'm thinking is the more neighborhood people we get to come to these meetings, the more human resources we can get to keep building on what we have, to clean up the neighborhood, to work with the homeless community, to work with you know, different groups in the neighborhood that aren't currently being reached, you know. Yeah, I think we're starting to get a critical mass going here.
Back to Josie's point, I'd move that the board approves her to go after the communication grant, the other $500 or whatever you can get out of Sewell.
Nice.
Thank
Well,
you. Because right now, I have to figure out which forum to use. They have several different forums, and there's one forum that's actually missing that they used last year that I think they're not using it anymore, but I have to clarify before I start filling stuff out.
Okay.
And I do want to say we have funds, I believe over $6,000 in our bank account that we haven't done anything with. So I wonder if
We might have to think about using it if we don't get the funds.
Well, we can supplement the Southeast Uplift money with our money in our bank account.
Right.
You know, the more we need to spend money to attract people to start doing things that would allow us to start having a reason for fundraising. You know, if we start having all kinds of activities as a neighborhood, then we'll be able to fundraise. But currently, you know, there's nothing to fundraise for. So it's kind of we got to get the ball rolling. I would second the move by Jim. I think we should try to put it into a concrete form. I do think we have a quorum here of board members. Jim, how might we word that to make an actionable item?
We authorize Josie as the communication person for Kerns to
Chair.
Thank you. Pursue a communication grant and other communication funds from Southeast Uplift to produce the postcard or newsletter, etc.
And whatever money we don't get, we can use from our bank account as Kerns Neighborhood bank account, because we need to get this postcard out.
Yes.
So therefore, the proposal is, and this is for board members to vote on, I do believe we have a quorum of 6 out of 12 board members. So
I don't know if I can vote though, but.
Sure,
yes,
you can.
Sure,
yeah, you
Oh,
can.
can I? Okay,
Sure,
well, I vote for it then, of course.
Well, okay, hold on. Let's put it in a motion. The motion is that we authorize Josie to put together a budget for outreach for the postcard project, apply for grants from Southeast Uplift, and whatever we don't get, we supplement with our bank account from Kerns Neighborhood. And then we send out the postcards. Does anyone second that?
Seconded.
Okay. A discussion? Anyone want to discuss it, or shall we put it to a vote?
All in favor?
Okay, this is for board members only. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All opposed? Abstain? Okay, it is passed. So we will put that on the official record. Great. I think we're now.
I've been sitting on this. It's pretty much ready. I mean, I'll check out any feedback that maybe there's things I can change. I'm open to that. But you know, we've got all the addresses, we've got everything. It's ready to go. We just need the money.
Let's get you in touch with Jenna. I want to, you know, she can give you some thoughts and you can choose to accept or reject them. But yeah, let's get this happening. I think we're to Daniel's part of the night. Daniel, you've been very patient. Daniel has put together an amazing document that it kind of ties in with the, it's another form of outreach. I'm going to go ahead and open this document, Daniel. And
sure. You know, the first Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Dave.
Well, no, I'll hand the floor over to you.
I put in the chat just a short document that I made of marketing and branding goals for all of Kerns, which include Josie's awesome work on the postcard that we're going to send out. This was my way of kind of clarifying and solidifying what we're trying to do with what we've talked about over the last 6 months, kind of hopefully propel us forward. The first being the postcard. The second goal, if you want to open up the PDF in the chat, you all are welcome to, otherwise I'm just going to talk through it. But the first goal of the marketing and branding goals for the neighborhood as a whole is the postcard, sending that to everybody within the neighborhood. The second goal is to fabricate and put on street lamps the banners, the Kerns banners that Jay Harris is working on. Jay is working on the design for the metal banners of those. Obviously, that will require a certain amount more fundraising than the postcards, but that's kind of step 2 with increasing awareness of what the Kerns neighborhood is about, because most people have never even heard the name Kerns. And then the third thing that I briefly mentioned a couple, actually I mentioned probably almost 6 months ago and then mentioned again, was drawing more attention to the neighborhood by the creation of, originally I had thought of something that I worked on a neighborhood council with years ago, which was an arch over a street to kind of say, welcome to the neighborhood. After some discussion with Dave and a few other people, it kind of makes sense to scale that down a little bit for funding reasons. It's still a big project, but this is our pie in the sky kind of dream big goal of increasing awareness of Kerns, is to do gates, like similar to the Laurelhurst gate, as you can see up there that Dave has on the screen there. There are various forms of different gates you could put over a sidewalk. And those 2 ones right below that are kind of like grander versions. There are much smaller versions of them as well. But that would be something to consider as a potential way of kind of marking and branding the neighborhood a bit more. As the bottom right one, the bottom 2 ones you can see there are fairly simple metal ones. Now they'll still be more expensive because gates are expensive, but they're a lot less expensive than the previous ones above that. In that proposal, I have come up with there's obviously those examples of the gates right there. There are also some proposed locations, which are kind of the entrances and quote unquote to the Kerns neighborhood. I've got some brief cost proposals. And let me see what else is on there. Yeah, so there's some photos of the potential locations for them. So one would be on 28th on Burnside, right in front of the Laurelhurst and Starbucks there. Below that, you'll see that there are another 2 options are on Sandy on both the west and the east end of the Kerns neighborhood. Sandy is kind of bleak in both of those spots. So for beautification purposes, that might be the better location, but for ease of actually implementation, 28th and Burnside might be easier. The nice thing about doing these gates as opposed to an arch over the whole street is that it will require a lot less input from PBOT. Still input from PBOT, but a lot less input from PBOT. So it'll make it smooth that process just a little bit more. I've already talked to a handful of people. Machu and I have been emailing about this before. I've talked to a few different people at RAC, at the city, and all of them are all pretty excited about this project. I think a lot of them are looking forward to or looking for a project that is about celebrating the city as opposed to trying to solve some of the big problems. So so far the response has actually been very positive. Of course, this would require a certain level of fundraising that would be relatively high, but one idea that people have thrown out that Dave suggested as well is to involve one of the local Kerns schools in helping to design this. We find a local Kerns artist, have them work with some of the students as a way of making the design cost a little bit cheaper. And then through that, ideally, we could also fundraise by appealing to the parents of the students involved in this. And I know something was very similar happened when I was in 5th grade. We worked on a mural and my parents were like, that's so cool. My 5th grader is going to be part of this mural. So they donated $100 or whatever it was. And now that mural is still there 30 something years later. So that's one idea as a way to fundraise. Obviously, we'd have to discuss this a lot more going down the line. But today, as I propose all this to you, and I'm trying to keep this brief because I know we've all been here a while, my goal was just to kind of get people's thumbs up to keep moving this forward, or thumbs down to say, no, this is a terrible idea. We don't want to do this. This is not a thumbs up to say this is going to happen for sure. This is a thumbs up to say, we like this idea. Let's kind of keep going until we hit a roadblock that we can't overcome. As actually, I'll stop there. Any thoughts or questions about all that? I know I talk fast and I give a lot of information. Yes,
Maybe a good
Rebecca.
idea
Oh.
would be to start with a budget for the smaller gates so we can get an idea of cost factor.
Yep, Josie, I'm on the budget right now. The difficult thing is in order to, the budget also kind of includes permits and those kinds of things. So I've been trying to gather information from the city in order to develop a budget. So that's the next step. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add a suggestion for your possible location of a gate would be at the south end of the new Earl Blumenauer pedestrian bridge. So as you walk across the bridge and you walk under the Kerns gate.
Nice.
That's a beautiful idea.
Big enough.
Yes. Well, or it could even just be on the sides of the
pylon.
but I love that
He
idea.
about to
That's a
pay
great
for
idea.
it.
There you go. Yes.
Well,
especially
why not?
if it's under PUOT purview. Yeah.
Great idea.
That's a great.
Rebecca? Yeah.
Hey, thanks. First of all, your last page on in your document here, is the years wrong on there?
Oh yeah, it says 2020. Yeah, it's supposed to be 2021. Sorry, that's an
Okay,
auto
thanks.
update. That my
I just wanted to
computer
make
did.
sure of that. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, I learned about this arch the last meeting and stuff, and my concern is it being there at Burnside and 28th. That's a very busy pedestrian area, and I don't know what the scaling back that we're talking about today would be, but I would be concerned about blocking, what limited sidewalk space there is there. And also, if you look down the street, there's really kind of a nice trees going down there and stuff, and whether that would kind of block that or obstruct it or whatever type of thing. So that was kind of my thoughts.
And it's great thoughts. Thanks for that input. 28th and Burnside is just one of the ideas. That's not, it's not the only place that we would. Dave, in his grand vision, which I love, was like, let's put the gates everywhere. It'd be fun to have them all over the place,
Yeah.
which I think would be fun. I think that would be a long-term goal with money, but I think aiming for, picking one spot right now would be probably the most reasonable. And 28th and Burnside may not be the appropriate place for either ADA accessibility with the sidewalk being as narrow as it is, or whatever the long-term plans are for the city with that area. Just as an aside for people so that they know, Whole Foods has recently donated almost $2,000 to the Friends of the 28th Avenue Promenade project. So that's a grant to be studying that. I believe going forward, the Friends of the 28th Avenue Promenade are going to be focusing their attention south of Burnside on that block or two just south of Burnside. But that's part of that area. So
That's interesting.
yeah, that just happened. It is kind of exciting. So, for those that are excited by that.
Very interesting. No, I just want to say thank you, Daniel, for all the work and energy you put into this and your vision. I think that this is something like this would be a great centerpiece for Kerns, and it would give us a symbol, just like St. Louis has the arch as their symbol. This could become the symbol of Kerns, I mean, as a matter of fact, these Laurelhurst arches kind of represent Laurelhurst. When you think of Laurelhurst, you think of these. And then I could totally see Kerns being much more like maybe this one, where much more kind of modern, postmodernist, industrial, to represent kind of the spirit of our neighborhood. I'm sure we have some great, metal artists in Kerns that could come up with some great designs. Not to mention the students at Benson and Da Vinci, super creative people. So yeah, I just want to commend you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Just
you.
had an idea.
Okay, go ahead, Rebecca.
And maybe, and I don't want to nix your idea because I like arches as well. I just don't know where but I'm just wondering about something like what are those things called that, that people build them? They're really tall and the wind can move them around and, they dance. What is that called?
Kinetic sculptures?
Well, or kind of like a wind, not a chime or anything, but something artistic like that. That would just be one, type of structure. Just, wouldn't take this much sidewalk space, for instance, or whatever like that. That could be an item. If it's like a new Space Needle, I'm not talking about a Space Needle, something that's, you know,
Yeah,
thick or whatever
something
type of thing.
symbolic.
Huh?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ideas out there that we could talk to an artist about what they
There you go.
envision.
All right.
You know, with like, if you look at the one that's up on screen on the bottom right, that kind of simple, more metal modern one, the
Yeah.
footprint of that could actually be fairly simple and can
Yeah.
be fairly small. So as far as sidewalk space, you know, kind of like a gate like this could take up a fairly minimal amount of sidewalk space. But I think that's something to keep in mind, whether that makes sense or some sort of other artistic, expression that minimally takes up sidewalk space, but still makes an impact about the neighborhood. Because again, the whole point of this is to help increase branding and awareness of the Kerns neighborhood, as it is a name that most people have never heard of. As someone that grew up in Portland, I'd never heard of it until I moved to Kerns. And I think that's important for people to keep in mind, is the whole point of this is really help people remember what neighborhood they're in. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we,
Cool.
Did you want to vote? Were you hoping for a vote, Daniel, whether we should first keep pursuing this or just a general show of hands?
Yeah, let's just do a general show of hands of support, or just so I can say, you know, I've talked to the neighborhood council about this as I talk to the city, and I can talk to them.
Maybe we can include the non-board members in this vote, just like everyone here. If you support this project and think it's a good idea, raise your hand. If you're against the idea and think we shouldn't pursue it, raise your hand. If you're on the fence, maybe raise your hand. Okay, well, you definitely have some support, maybe not unanimous at this point, but I mean, I would think if we could raise the funds and it wasn't a matter of asking for money, it probably, I would guess, people would support it. I definitely think something like this could create a symbol of the neighborhood that would give it recognition, you know, visual recognition, just like this village of Patchogue. We could put Kerns right there and, you know, give some recognition to the name Kerns. I was also thinking if we had something like this, we could use this image on our banners that we put around on the street signs. So rather than actually having a bunch of arches, at least we could have one arch and then put an image of the arch on the banners, you know, a much less expensive way to do it. So
that's good branding, keeping things similar.
Yeah, it's some sort of branding. So yeah,
So,
I hope this moves forward.
Didn't Jay talk to Joe Weston, didn't he? And Joe said he'd chip in a chunk.
He did. Yeah, he said he'd chip in money. Yep.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a potential patron or funder. So we hardly ever ask for money in Kerns. And I think if we had some causes, you know, and not, you know, a combination of causes, some of them would be, you know, homelessness or street cleanup or humanitarian causes, but some of them would be like this, you know, art, like you said, proactive things to get excited about, which aren't negative. They're like a positive, creating something new. I think if we could have a combination of causes like that, we could really raise some money from a number of sources. So.
Thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. And I will keep you updated as I continue to kind of move this project forward.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're almost basically at the end of our agenda. I already kind of mentioned the very last item, which is the Rebecca suggested that why don't we merge inner and outer Kerns on Nextdoor? And I'm one of the leads on Nextdoor. And I'm like, yeah. And we started asking around on Nextdoor and everyone loves the idea. So I've actually already put that in the works. And I don't know how many people are here on Nextdoor, but it does seem to be one of the major ways where people communicate with each other in the neighborhood. And there's this odd artificial divide currently between so-called inner and outer Kerns, which doesn't exist in real life. It only exists on Nextdoor. So the people at Nextdoor are enthusiastic about it and they think it's going to happen. So it's just one more way to like reach out to people around the neighborhood and get things going. My vision is that we have a bunch of committees, or I don't like to call them committees, I call them teams myself, but we have like, you know, a team that tackles homelessness, a team that tackles garbage, a team that tackles maybe diversity issues to make sure everybody feels welcome, a team that tackles art and symbolic projects, you know, more neighborhood involvement, you know, a team that tackles emergency preparation, which we have. But we need to get more people on that team, you know, and bring people together, just get the word out. That's my personal, I mean, I think we all have similar ideas, but that's my vision. I'm gonna stop talking and let other people talk. We have 15 more minutes before 8. Marcia, yes. You're muted. Let's see.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry I'm late.
No problem.
I'm sorry I missed the first part of the meeting, but I'm kind of new. And if there was a team that I would like to maybe be a part of, it would be about development in the neighborhood. Now, there was a meeting about a development on Davis Street between 18th and 19th with the architects and the developers. I'm going to try and make this brief, but anyway, and I haven't heard anything else since that meeting. It was a month or so ago. And I don't know if anybody else was a part of that, but it's a great concern because it's across from Silvercrest, which is a senior living building, which I live in. And parking is major problem. Anyway, I don't know, you may have talked about this before. I just wanted to throw that out. It can be tabled for another time, but it's a great concern for people, I think, about all these buildings being plopped up with no parking, with you know, consideration. So anyway.
Well, so what would you like to happen with that particular development that's not happening now?
Well, I sort of feel in the dark because I don't know if anybody else is thinking about this, or that's why I'm presenting it to the group. I don't know if anybody's really, if there's an organized anything for this.
We actually have a planning team with Kerns. Jesse Lopez is in this meeting and knows a lot about planning and is on the Southeast Uplift planning committee. You know, there are a lot of other people here who have experience. As a matter of fact, Jim Couts has a lot of experience with that kind of thing. So you've come to the right place, I think. But it helps to kind of know what your concerns are, and you know, what is your concern with this particular development?
Well, I think that they're putting, or it was considered to have like 40 or 20 to 40 units, which doesn't mean 20 or 40 people. It's going to be more people. Mm-hmm. And you know, they're putting in bike. Well, I guess having a lot of seniors in this particular part of town, or a particular street, I'm sorry, there's people are using walkers there, but they're having to park 3 blocks down the street. I guess it's a transportation, which is a big issue, I think, which is really bothering me. And we have limited parking in our building, and I have issues with walking. And if I don't come back at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't have a space, and I have to park 4 blocks down the street and have to, you know, shuffle down the street to get to my park. Anyway, that's just one thing. It's about livability in a community. It's not just the parking issue. Does this, you know, we're going to have, you know, they're doing it all over the city. You know, we're squishing more and more people within the communities, and we're not considering how that's going to be for the livability of our environment. So I don't know if that's making any sense or if I'm sort of talking or, you know.
That makes a lot of sense. I wonder what, I don't want to talk about it. I've talked enough this meeting. I want to hear what other people have to say.
Marcia,
Oh,
I'm
go
also
ahead.
concerned about the parking, them building buildings around here and not requiring any kind of parking in them. I think as you were just headed for a disaster and, you know, I don't know what you do about that, so.
So I attended the meeting with the developer. So to give some context for folks, this is a street that in pre-COVID days, I regularly commuted to my office downtown. So it's Davis between 20th and 19th, I believe.
18th and 19th.
Yeah. And so there was a pretty nice house there. It's a single unit house, right? So it's luxury housing, and it's being replaced with what was originally going to be an apartment building, but I believe they're actually going to sell them. So it's going to be condos. Yeah. So it's the 1824, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. Cause it has like the sunroom in the back. So that, and it's a developer, and they're basically, they're not quite building as many units as they could legally. By right, they could build 19 without any parking on the location. There was a few less than that. So, but clearly they're trying to maximize the number of units they could fit on that particular lot. It's clearly different than the development pattern that's there. So a lot of the neighborhoods, the folks who live nearby voice their concerns, particularly the next door neighbor. And Marcia, I don't know if it was you, but I remember some folks at the meeting voicing concern about parking issues, that there's already parking issues in the neighborhood. So I have no rights or agency to give my own personal opinions in these meetings. I'm merely the neighborhood rep. What I can say is that a few points. They are within the Portland design guidelines, for zoning for that particular lot. I think they noticed that there was a recent change in zoning that allowed them to do this, and they were just savvy enough to grab up the lot to build on it. We have another case in the neighborhood of developers doing this on, what is it, over by Sandy and like 30th, and we've had neighbors come in and we've had it's similar situation. It's a recent zoning change. Some savvy developer noticed there was a single unit house on there. They buy the property so they can build an apartment building. So I mean, these are some of the unfortunate side effects where there are these zoning changes. So there's not a lot you can do to challenge them like legally because they're within their right. But what I recommend is if there are big concerns, that is to organize and continue to speak with the developers, with the neighbors, and I'll show up to the meetings and make sure your voices are heard, and kind of work the refs. We can kind of organize around that kind of angle. Another thing a couple of other things I'll mention is that if parking is consistently an issue around in that particular part of Kerns, I mean, it's clear that already supply, the parking's free, right? And there's less supply than demand, right? So you're out of balance with supply and demand. And the general way that you start to handle that is you have to start charging for parking so that people who are parking there for free and don't need to, don't. I know that during the meeting, they said that there's one neighbor there who has like 3 or 4 vehicles, right? And so one person in an apartment is taking up 3 or 4 of those spots on that street, which is kind of crazy, right? So if parking's free, people can do that kind of thing. But if you implement a parking permit system, then they're less likely to do so. And then the final thing I'll mention is that, building parking isn't cheap. Basically in Portland now, every parking spot built into an apartment costs between $30,000 to $50,000. And so that gets added to the cost of housing, and so it makes new housing more expensive. So that it's a complicated issue, right? There's no clear, easy solution. And this is related to homelessness and traffic. and parking for folks who already live in the neighborhood. And so all of these things that we've talked about in this meeting are all really interconnected. And so I think we need to be empathetic to the neighbors who already live there. We need to be empathetic for future neighbors, and we need to kind of come to an understanding and kind of work through these issues with kind of a positive attitude and empathy, like I said. So if you'd like to talk more about this, we can definitely keep in touch. And if there's another meeting that you know about, I'm more than happy to show up and provide feedback about other ways that you can interact with the developers and the city, because there's multiple points of feedback in the development process.
So just thank you very much. And I didn't want to take up too much time, but how do I, because I haven't heard anything from anybody about meetings or, so Jesse, how do I get in touch with you from Uplift? Are you?
Well, can you see the chat on the side?
Oh yeah, okay.
The Kerns, can you put your email in there and I'll email you from the Kerns land use email address?
So the Kerns NA at Google Groups, that's you?
That's good enough. And then Dave could forward it to me, right?
Okay. I'll send you an email.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, I haven't heard anything from that point either after the meeting. And there's been no changes that I've seen come through the Portland. I get emails from the development offices and I haven't seen anything new. So I don't know if things are cooking on their end or not. So I have no new information for you, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the meeting and the one for the development as well. Appreciate the activities.
Great. Anyone else want to talk about neighborhood stuff? We have a few more minutes before 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Hi.
David.
Hi. Did you guys get my the directory I've started making?
I did. It's wonderful. Very, very comprehensive. And I plan to import that into some section of our website. David has put together, I think it started with the picnic, right?
Yep.
A spreadsheet of every business and organization in the Kerns neighborhood. And very comprehensive, phone numbers, addresses, websites. I'm planning to make a section for that on the website where we can have our own little, it's almost like a yellow pages, where we can, but have filter by different types of organizations, restaurants, cafes, churches, nonprofits.
When I headed the picnic, one of the things that took up a lot of my time was figuring out how many businesses we actually had in the neighborhood, how many residents we had in the neighborhood, and the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. And I thought if we had a list, and then on the spreadsheet we could have a list of not only who was here, but what kind of business it was, what kind of nonprofit it was. We can see what's already there, and it would be easy for whoever's doing something like the picnic or the neighborhood cleanup to have that list already had in their hands. And eventually a spreadsheet can things like which ones participated in the cleanup, which ones participated in the picnic, and that we have the information ahead of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great resource.
And it's already up to 275 names of nonprofits and businesses. I think it's going to top out at 300.
Wow.
Oh, that's great. I could use that for the postcard too.
Exactly what I'm thinking too. And it's taken some time, Josie, but it's getting there.
Oh, I understand.
But I realized that how much time I spent with the picnic just trying to figure out the names and addresses of all places to send letters to. I realized, if I had a list, I never had a list, that would have made my job a lot easier.
Definitely.
Yeah, great. Well,
and the postcards too. Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for inviting us, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful. Let's keep the conversation going. Everyone does their part and we'll make things better.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You all.
Bye.
Bye.